It's quite amazing. They want to live in denial. Denial! Feel free to fucking express yourself color free. Oh. Then you realize, then you start realizing the preachers are pimping the children out, and the pimps are doing the preaching. It's all fucking backwards. That's why I've been to church lately. Church is doing the pimping and the pimps doing the preaching. Word up! Hear that one? Hey, you guys, Toby. It sure is a fine line between pimping and preaching. Man, right? Where's all those haters at? They always had so much shit talking to do, you know? Where'd they go? Where'd all those shit talkers go? Right? Where'd all those communists go? Where'd all the Nazis go? Where'd all the conformists go? The Marxists, where'd they go? Where'd the Taoists go? Where everybody got really quiet, didn't they? Sounds like a fucking morgue. A morgue, a mortuary, house of the living dead. Are you the dead? Are you the damned? Are you the dead and the damned? I don't have any idea what's happening here. Nope. Is this the house of Matt? The house of the dead? Are you the fucking dead? Are you the fucking brain dead? Zombies feast on brains, right? Oh, the living dead. House of the living dead. Hey, you're in the underworld. Yeah. No one told you, but you're in hell already. And no one wants to talk about it. Before I went live, I posted 80 pictures on my wall. And I think I even tagged Jacoby and Ty. Good rising, Ty. Ty's new clientele to the house, Matt. Good rising, buddy. Appreciate your business, man. You fund this madness. Your 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 purchase funds this madness, Ty. So we appreciate your patronage and your support to our crazy game store floor. This thing is completely self-funded, Kobe. This whole operation is self-funded. I sell video games to fund this floor. Nobody funds it. I do. Nobody pays me to speak. I pay me to speak. Isn't that funny? I pay me to speak. Nobody pays me to do these things. I pay to do them. And this just in from the Matthew Collector's Corner. If you're looking for vintage games, if you're looking for vintage consoles, vintage hoodies, vintage hats, inbox me. Tell me what you're looking for. I probably have it. And the proceeds go towards funding this group therapy. So make sure you check out the photo bomb that I put up before I went live. 20 years in sales made me realize you can't tell anybody anything. You could show them, but are they going to look? Can't tell anybody anything. You learn that from experience. You don't learn that in the classroom. You're only able to speak on what you were conditioned to know. And most people go through their whole fucking lives thinking that their job and school conditions you to go to work for other than yourself. This is what causes the separation anxiety. You become dependent on other than yourself for your survival. Do-do-do. So, because of the social conditioning of today, people are not conditioned to trust themselves. And if you can't trust yourself, you can't trust other than yourself. If you can't trust yourself, what can you trust? Nothing. This social contract was contingent upon trust. If the individual only trusts themselves and not the fucking collective, then the collective bargaining agreement has been shot to fucking shit. And what do they care about it? They don't. So it's the end of the contract. Because of community and cults of personality out there, I accidentally conditioned myself to trust myself. It's goddamn amazing. And because of that, I became the loudest person in the room. And if you don't trust yourself, well, you and I won't get along at all. Most people don't trust themselves. They trust other than themselves. They trust Joe Biden. They trust Joe Biden is doing the right thing. And they believe they can build back better with Biden. Right? You imagine being on a job site, a construction site, and you're going to build back better with Joe Biden as your boss. Can you even bring yourself to fucking believe that shit? Right? Build back better with Biden. Could you believe that? Would you buy that for $1? No? Build back better with Biden. And do you think Trump is going to make America great again? There's your propaganda, right? Do you not realize that Fred Trump was a pimp and Trump's a pimp by blood, right? His father was a pimp, so that means he's a pimp. Isn't that funny? I'm being called a fucking pimp. Trump's a pimp. The daddy a pimp. He actually got a hoe train Miss Universe pageant. Not many people know about it. It's insider intel. That's your issue, not mine. Pimps and hoes these days. Just like that song. The pimps are doing the preaching and the preachers are doing the pimping. It's role reversal at its finest. Where's those fucking preachers now? Pimping. Where's the pimps? Preaching. Fucking A. Who's big pimping now, motherfucker? And if you don't have a response, then use a hoe. Done. Oh no! 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 That's Oh No by Chris Webby, Tech Nine, and Jaron Benton. It really makes me laugh when somebody thinks that they're the fucking first. You know? Right? We've developed in this country the inability to admit fault, right? They can't apologize or admit when they're wrong about anything. Oh my God. The last thing a parent is going to do is admit to their children that they were wrong about fucking anything. And isn't that amazing? Parents can't admit fault to their children. Then the children would smell blood in the water, and the children might eat their parents. Isn't that wild? Parents are always holding their children back out of fear. They act like this shit's a goddamn conspiracy. Do do do. Just stomach. We've actually gotten to the point where issues don't matter until they're issues personally. Child trafficking doesn't bother anybody until their child's the one being trafficked. Child abduction cases don't really concern anybody unless it's their child. There's no empathy in the law. Silence is no excuse for not knowing the law. Children don't get taught the law. Isn't that amazing? They get punished for not knowing what the law is, but they don't teach the law in school. The color law, law of color. Express yourself colorfully, react colorfully, confess your sins emotionally. Feel free to express yourself colorfully. Through this language, I bypassed sexism, racism, bigotry, hypocrisy. I bypassed tribal ethnicity. I tried bypassed culture. I bypassed religion, politics, gender. Even recognized there's a color war happening. And when I speak, they don't have really anything to say. And I'm supposed to feel what? What? Feel? For who? There's 180 people in Op Free Draco, and none of them could be bothered to share yesterday's feed, participate. They're not concerned with child trafficking. It's not their child. That's what blows my mind. Truth subjugates lie. Cancels it out. What? No! Why are they talking? I'm knocking. I'm talking. I'm talking. I'm knocking. Fucking around. Talking is talking. Listen, knocking. Your brain cracking. Cracking. Shocking. Sugar mouth and little duck face. Or talking. Hey, look, the fucking peacocking. Talking. Hi. You know what's funny? You can't have a conversation with children. That's what you are to me. Children. Telling me to grow the fuck up. When you got bought and paid for a long time ago. Isn't that wild? They got bought and paid for. Professionals can't deal with confrontation. They don't like contestation. This isn't a contest. I wasn't contested. No contest at all. Anyone say no? No, they didn't. They said nothing at all. Oh, no contest. How did I fucking lose? There's no goddamn contest. No contest. Uncontestable. I'm a contender, contending, causing confrontation, conflict. Financed it with my own money. And then I shoved your face in the shit like a dog. And you didn't say anything. That blew my fucking mind. Where'd everybody go? That's a freaking. What do you think of that song?
It's a bit screechy.
God Mode by Tom McDonald.
His voice is a bit like screechy. I like the other
That song got how many views?
What's his name?
Tom McDonald. The other guy was Chris Webby.
Yeah, Chris.
I like Chris Webby. Rising, everybody.
This guy's a bit screechy. He's screaming.
Rising, rising, rising. Get your mojo rising, rising, rising. Do, do, do. Rising. Color. Fucking mind blowing. Good rising, everybody. Got a question for y'all. How can you be on something, or when you're inside of it, the Earth? You cannot be on planet Earth when you're in planet Earth. Wild, right?
We've been lied to. This is the worst I've ever seen.
Are you thinking about selling products on Amazon? Well, don't make the same mistake as Lance. Say that? Well, Lance tried to start an Amazon business on his own.
There is no coming to consciousness without pain. This quote reflects Jung's belief that the process of becoming aware of one's own subconscious self often involves facing difficult and painful truths. Confronting and integrating these aspects was to achieve individuation, but to the ancients, this learning by way of experience was gnosis. There are many variations of the initiation process throughout the world, but each of them has a common theme. Darkness, taming the turbulence by mastering the fear-oriented self. Thousands of years ago, a young man was once recommended as an aspirant by a high initiate of the secret school, long before his name became common household lingo. He was soon after put on a strict diet and brought to the court of the pharaoh to be taught an immense course on geometry, architecture, astronomy, and mathematics that would indeed be difficult for anyone with a modern degree. The aspirant had to remain unwavering in his focus, as this class did not pause to let him catch up. He was then offered the crown by the king himself, but immediately rejected this offer, throwing the crown to the ground and exclaiming, "Mithras alone is my crown." The king then struck him in the head, and he was mummified while alive. And why mummified? Well, the young aspirant was about to find out. The initiates brought him to the entrance of a subterranean vault and opened the gates, where he was instructed to drink from a bowl of extremely pungent and bitter liquid, and make no mistake, every drop was consumed by the aspirant. He walked past the entrance labeled Gate of Death and into the underground labyrinth, unknowing of what was to come specifically, but knowing nonetheless that this would be the worst few months of his life. Within the subterranean vault, he began to encounter ghastly creatures and phantoms of the darkness that seemed never-ending. He was left alone and abandoned, with no companion besides his own reflecting thoughts and footsteps, to face and overcome these ghosts of his own soul. But this party just began, because he then spent months surviving within this vast palace of dank, encountering reptiles and scorpions that he couldn't see any better than his papyrus sheets and pen. The venom of the creatures was removed, but certainly not their fangs. So basically fear factor without any chance of leaving to sign a waiver. If he failed at this part, he would die and be forgotten. With only himself to bear, he wrote on his papyrus whatever came to his mind, and this writing might have been the only tool keeping him sharp, because just as his psyche was about to break, he emerged from the labyrinth and into daylight for the first time in what seemed like chasms of time. No later, and just as swiftly, was instructed to take an exam on what he learned in that prior course that he was taught before walking all the way through hell and back. If he was able to maintain his wits over the course of that nightmare, he would pass the exam and move on to the next phase. He was served a feast hosted by beautiful women who made several solid attempts to cast their virginities onto him, but to no avail, as he was not interested in the appetites of the flesh. A test probably more difficult than the scorpion pit fear factor deal, if we're being honest. He was now a master of what would be called the lesser mysteries. He would later be taken to a grand gallery of towering columns chiseled with the wisdom of the initiates before him, and was finally told the deeper meaning of God's name and attributes, as well as the real reason geometry exists as it does in this world. He was also told about the untold history of the many risings and falls of the human race and the golden ages of antiquity. There were, at this point, no secrets kept from him. Ages of collected wisdom were now given freely to the young man, who we will all come to know by first name. If he is able to comprehend the truth bombs dropped on him at this time, he is granted what was called a circumcision of the tongue. A metaphor, of course, being that he was now permitted to speak of this knowledge to the masses however he saw fit. And this freedom of speech came in handy when he went on to write the book of Genesis. because its author, the once aspirant named Moses, was now an initiate of the greater mysteries and cosmic understanding. He was now enabled to shape a great eon of the world to how he saw fit, an eon of time that we live within to this day.
The brain power you want is not in a bottle, capsule, or magic lamp. It's in your brain right now.
Let's look at the word priest kings. We have priest, which is an intermediate between the divine and the people. That's really become derailed in modern times. And we have the word king, which is a ruler that makes laws, a politician, so to speak. So that one was not only derailed, but a complete train wreck, to put it gently. In the days of early dynastic Egypt, of Amun, of Thebes, there was no difference between the two. The natural law of God was also the law on earth. This is a pretty good deal if you can do it right, without using divine word to push your own agenda. The priest kings were not thought to be gods like we were told in school. That was meant to make these extremely advanced people look like savages, and it worked really good for a long time. They were, however, considered to be the embodiment of the natural law of God on earth, as they were found to be qualified for that position. Qualified because they themselves followed the law to a T and led by example. Again, we have really come derailed. The pharaohs performed religious rituals to keep the kundalini popping and the veil between heaven and earth thin. And when you see the layout, construction, and purpose in old Egypt, it is harder and harder to claim that these rituals didn't work. Egypt stood tall at least triple the amount of time that our society has been in place. And we now know that slaves were not used and were assumed because their architecture is frankly impossible. Manly P. Hall wrote the words, "Science and theology are two ends of a single truth, but the world will never receive the full benefits of their investigations until they have made peace with each other and labor hand in hand for the accomplishment of the great work, the liberation of spirit and intelligence from the three-dimensional prison, ignorance, superstition, and fear." Every religion has something in common with archaeology. They are seeking what was once lost in ages past. And in this way, they are on a quest for a once real reality that has been buried by the modern times of illusions. This quest is indeed the birthright of man. We are meant to find a balance in a sphere of unbalance. This is the great work that can never be truly finished, because there is no finish line in the game of evolution, considering that the only constant is change. Just as David gave his son King Solomon the task of working on his temple that could never be completed, each generation gives the next one the gift of work in building parts upon that very temple, metaphorically speaking, of course. But the building of this parabolic temple is only hard because the reality of the situation is that man is a creature of attitude and desires. He is a servant of impressions and opinions. With this wavering of the unbalanced mind, we cannot attain the qualities necessary to improve upon the great work. This is the reason that a lot of ancient wisdom remains hidden. You know, you wouldn't want a bunch of unlicensed scabs working on a literal temple either. It'll only degrade what is already there to be potentially improved upon. Although a man is born with two eyes, he does not clearly see the harmony of this great plan until suffering long years of sorrow and often solitude. Carl is quoted as saying, "Nothing whatsoever comes to consciousness without pain. Pain is a cornerstone of evolution and improvement. And as grim as it sounds, evolution can be accelerated by way of intensifying the ordeal of suffering, thus shortening the amount of time needed to grow the very eyes that can see clearly." Manly P. Hall wrote, "We have no right to ask for wisdom." And indeed, there was nobody at the starting line saying that we deserve to have insight right out the gate. And frankly, by what authority do we demand happiness as human individuals? Wisdom and happiness is by no means the birthright of any creature. Yet, any creature may have just that if they cultivate those attributes within themselves. In a way, people who demand happiness without doing the work are further feeding that already imbalanced dance by way of lethargy. This is like your teenage daughter who drinks from the Brita filter without refilling it, but way less tragic. And Papa P puts it even more frankly when he writes, "There is no need of asking, nor does any deity bow down to give man these things that he desires. Man is given by nature a gift, and that gift is the privilege of labor. Through labor, he learns all things." But what more can any creature of earth ask than to have the opportunity to prove the existence of what he is internally, to live by the vision that leads him? If you think about it, a lifetime is simply an appointment set up before you were born that is dedicated to this potential accomplishment. But the physical world is often so overwhelming that we tend to forget that it is a thin veil that blocks the much bigger expanse of reality where our true higher selves reside. We come here to experience ignorance and a disconnect from source. And in that very lifetime, we are challenged with choosing wisdom over superstition. Superstition opposes all things and clings to the notion of falling from grace. It is a victim mentality, while wisdom seeks a deeper understanding, thus flows with all things. Wisdom celebrates the beauty of the great mystery that is hidden behind that thin veil of physical reality, experiencing it for everything it is worth until the time is right to leave it behind. Superstition wants to cling to that strand of hair that will take you down into the depths of the ocean with its own sinking ship. With wisdom, a man knows that the great unseen world known as the ether or monad, the Tao, waters of the deep, unified field, or whatever you want to call it, is what gave birth to this physical reality called Maya or illusion. To oversimplify it, the world that Sonic the Hedgehog experiences is real to him, but an illusion nonetheless. The solid ground that he runs his little ass on is birthed from the code stored on that hard drive. Sonic can't see the hard drive any more than we can see the unified field, but he can see you whenever you don't move him for several minutes, and he is very impatient, so you need to get him scooting along again. Shit. That reminds me, I haven't fed my Tamagotchi in 17 years. Spirit creates the trail, and physical matter follows swiftly behind. So in this way, truth leads and ignorance follows, so close behind that it is damn near attached to it. We are all on this trail's path and moving from ignorance to truth. Thus, getting from matter to spirit is simply an act of acceleration. And just like any thorough hike on a literal trail, accelerating to catch up is simply a matter of exertion with a purpose. You can stand there in ignorance and wonder how you're going to catch up, or you can just start walking. There are ditches in the path, tree branches smacking you in the face, and poisonous leaves, all kinds of other obstacles. But through that toil and your acceleration, you will eventually find yourself parallel to that which is actually cutting the trail. And at which point, it certainly does not get any easier, but at least you are now leading the way. Old Fred Nietzsche said that he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. Having a purpose not only makes life worth living, but also makes suffering much easier. Purpose can keep a person from cracking under the pressures of anxiety and heartache. And you don't have to travel very far to find that purpose. This is where people tend to get confused, I think, thinking that they need a big, grandiose end goal for a sense of purpose. This is nonsense, and it'll have you running in tight circles. In the case of anxiety and heartache, for example, the purpose that you now have is simply to feel all that shit for everything that it's teaching you. and that's it. Stop looking further and let that classroom take you into the next one by way of graduation. Just like lifting weights strengthens the arms, anxiety and heartache strengthen the psyche. Simply knowing that gives you a short sense of purpose to keep you from breaking down. We get to know and better acquaint ourselves with the negative to better attract the positive. Like a magnet, those opposites attract when unified. Who's going to carry the boats? What was that supposed to be? That's a David Goggins joke. I know it. I need to make my notes less vague.
In just 2 weeks, I lost 36 pounds. I have more energy, better mood. I feel attractive.
The age of the mystery schools is not something we can quantify in hundreds or even thousands of years. Its origin is not of this world. In esoteric thinking, the mystery schools are brought to this world by groups of celestial intelligences that govern the creative process in all the cosmos. It is here to help mankind reconnect with that cosmic source while we are cast out in this sort of experimental laboratory that is the world. It can be very disheartening to think of our world as a cosmic experiment until you realize that you are the one conducting the experiment, both scientist and lab rat all at once. The initiated understand that, just like symbols, the trials and rituals imposed onto the candidate are only blinds fabricated by the wisest ancient masters to perpetrate ideals that are currently incomprehensible to the masses who are unwilling to bend over backwards for gnosis. And unwilling, if you ask me, is a lot worse than unknowing. The pre-initiate seeks to lift himself up from the lower realms by the very same friction that comes with it. As counterintuitive as it may seem, this is a form of Wu Wei, or effortless living, going downstream with the direction of the water that flows. The spirit is forced to agonize in the concrete world with a mind that is incomprehensible to those dwelling in the same exoteric world. But this is where mankind begins to comprehend the meaning of the allegories and the treacherous path of tribulation that comes with that very concrete. Reaching enlightenment through way of suffering is not a new idea, and it seems that the more ancient the practice, the more brutal. The most extreme cases I have seen are the ways of the Agora tribes. These people endure practices that are incomprehensible to us: self-mutilation, bloodletting, starvation, sleep deprivation, overexertion through dance and chanting, damn near to the point of death, and so on. Extremely difficult practices of which are used as tools to accelerate the spiritual evolution within. However, it should be noted that these people are deep within their culture, super hardcore, and contacting them to learn about these things is extremely dangerous, as many reporters have unfortunately come to find. But they are a real case of a still existing reflection of a time when enlightenment was no light matter. And that makes me wonder what exactly was happening just beneath the ground in the seemingly once treacherous labyrinth that we call Göbekli Tepe. Being that it is decorated with dangerous predators in stone and adorned with phallic symbols, a very masculine theme that seems to hint at a much more extreme form of hazing. Göbekli Tepe is, in fact, even older than the site of Giza. So this could quite possibly be the oldest known site of initiation into the mystery schools through the conquering of fear and danger. The phallic symbols suggest that this was a ritualistic path into manhood, from boy to warrior, or from adept to initiate. A course of gaining immortality by way of first-hand experience with fear and pain. And I wouldn't be surprised if this purposeful run-in with fear was exaggerated by some kind of hallucinogenic brew to amplify the darkness of the experience that much more. And of course, to thin the veil between the potential initiate and the causal realms. Taking acid or something like that under conditions that are less than pleasant, it becomes a complete nightmare. But more on Göbekli Tepe is coming up in next week's video. So mark your calendar, phone deal thingy. Within the Masonic rites, a Mason is not appointed, but instead evolved. The position he holds in the lodge means very little in comparison to his position in the greater spiritual hierarchy that is his character. And surely the Lodge of the Freemason is the very result of this long existing school of initiation. It is a reflection of ancient times where many years of preparation are necessary before entering 1 foot into the mysteries. This extreme difficulty is a surefire way to make sure that the shallow and faint of heart who give in willingly to temptation would be eliminated from gaining unearned wisdom. Because there's no need for an authority figure to kick somebody out when the process itself is so long and hard, like the pillars of Göbekli Tepe, if you catch my drift. So the neophyte eliminates himself from the game if he is not ready and willing. After all, there is no one as blind as a person who is unwilling to see. To elaborate on what was said a moment ago, unwilling is worse than unable. Because unable can be worked on and slowly mastered, whereas unwilling is to wear ignorance proudly as a garment.
This lens is blowing minds and taking over the US market. It's like nothing you've seen before. Dude, you got to hear about this.
As the neophyte approaches the position of priest king, he will see things that he has never seen before. Not because they weren't there in the first place, but because he was once blind to them. This ain't much different than when you buy a new car and now you see that same car more frequently on the road. You just put that foot in the door and now your attention is better tuned to notice that kind of car. And so the difficult process of initiation is in this way similar to Plato's cave allegory. When they walk out of the cave, they can see for the first time the very things that were casting the shadows on the wall that they thought were reality. But now that their eyes are opened outside of the cave, the sun is now blinding them with light that hurts their fresh eyes. Many people cave in to temptation of going back into the shadows where it is thought to be safe. But the student of the mysteries will endure the pain of the blinding sunlight, knowing that he can adapt and adjust to it. He trusts that process within himself. Freedom cannot be attained by a person who does not know that they're a prisoner. Again, here we are acquainting ourselves with the bad to better attract the good. And the good will frighten us before it pleases us. The axiom, the truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off, comes to mind. An allegory parallel to the Masons, we are all building something. Enduring the pain that comes with the light gives us the wisdom to build the walls of the temple, walls that expand higher and further outwardly with the consciousness that is growing and building it. However, the profane, living in ignorance, are building the walls of their own prison around themselves, brick by brick, into smaller and smaller cubicles. And yes, a triple pun is intended by using the word cubicle. When building in the dark, we have to keep everything close to be able to see it. And so the world gets smaller and smaller the more you build while in that frame of mind. I think that there is a reason that office cubicles are designed that way. It limits your perception down to what is right in front of you. So what do the people do? They put up pictures of their family and a calendar with a picture of a mountain during sunset to kind of simulate the image of the life that they're missing out on from outside of that box. This is where the necktie comes in handy to be used the moment that you realize this soul trap. Does everybody get it? Who's going to get it? Yeah. Okay, moving on. All human vehicles are born with superpowers by the very hermetic law of cause and effect. We can grab the reins of outcome and control our own destiny by using our emotions as fuel. We learned from Bentov that emotions are unique to this physical realm, a blessing and a curse indeed, depending on how we aim those emotions. Manly P. Hall sums it up this way: how can emotion manifest save through form? How can mind manifest until the intricately evolved brain cells of matter have raised their organic quality to form the groundwork upon which other things may be based? All students of human nature realize that every expression of man depends upon organic quality, that in every living thing this differs, and the fineness of this matter is the certain indication of growth, mental, physical, or spiritual. True to the doctrines of his craft, the entered apprentice must beautify his temple. He must build within himself by his actions, by the power of his hand, and the tools of his craft, certain qualities which make possible his initiation into the higher degrees of the spiritual lodge. We know that the cube block is symbolic of the tomb. It is also well known that the entered apprentice is incapable of rolling away the stone, of transmuting it into a greater or higher thing. But it is his privilege to purify and glorify that stone and begin the great work of preparing it for the temple of his king. And I love the way that is a metaphor for you can't roll the stone. It's a block, it's a cube, it's a square, but you can decorate it, so to speak, like the dung beetle. You can polish a turd. Few realize that since the universe is made up of individuals in various stages of development, responsibility is consequently individual, and everything which man wishes to gain, he must himself build and maintain. If he is to use his finer bodies for the purpose for which they were intended, he must treat them well, that they may be good and faithful servants in the great work that he is preparing for. And it is no secret that the mind and the body are deeply connected and affect each other constantly. If you want to improve the mind, improve the body, and vice versa. After all, the atomic body is a temporary vehicle for the spirit. And just like any vehicle, like a car, it has to be maintained according to its own specific nature. In the book, Lost Keys of Freemasonry, Papa P breaks down 5 particular steps that he considers to be foundation requirements of anyone who might feel urged to correlate himself with the great work of the mystics. 1. The entered apprentice should have studied sufficiently the subject of anatomy to have at least a general idea of the physical body. The human body is the highest manifestation of form which he is capable of analyzing. 2. The entered apprentice must realize that his body is the living temple of the living God and treat it accordingly. For when he abuses or mistreats it, he breaks the sacred obligations which he must assume before he can ever hope to understand the true mysteries of the craft. The breaking of his pact within the higher life evolving within himself unfailingly invokes the retributive agencies of nature. 3. He must study the problem of maintenance through food, clothing, breathing, and other necessities. Those who eat immoderately, dress improperly, and use only about 1/3 of their lung capacity can never have the physical efficiency necessary for the fullest expression of the higher life. So basically no fun allowed there. 4. Human relationships must be idealized at this time, and he must seek to unfold all unselfish qualities which are necessary for the harmonious working of the Mason and his fellow men on the physical plane of nature. 5. He must seek to round off all inequalities. He can best do this by balancing his mental and physical organisms through the application and study of the 7 liberal arts and sciences. And for those 7 steps, see our last video called Stairway to Certitude. And we can probably shorten that up just by saying to do yoga and don't forget to breathe. Breathing, turns out, you got to do pretty much all of the time. What a pain in the ass. And by utilizing more than 1/3 of your lung capacity, I don't think Manly P. Hall is referring to your bong rips. So put Put it down, Sean. Hall insists that life manifests through human emotion just as much as through physical action. These emotional powers need to be kept in check, like the horses pulling the chariot mentioned in the allegory of the Bhagavad Gita. In the tangible realm, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The exact notion is true for the emotional state of the psyche. It has a direct and immediate reflection into our outer reality. If you can learn to pick and choose your own emotions, then likewise you get to pick and choose your own fate in this world. This works in reverse, by the way, due to what we are finding out about retrocausality in physics. But that's for another video.
How many hours do you work out to look like that? I don't work out. Yeah, so how often do you meet with a dietitian? Never. I don't go to the doctor anymore. But how do you stay so healthy? I learned the 13 foods that help or hurt the body. Practice mindfulness. I balance my...
Hello. Oh. Fucking mouse. Come on.
What time is it?
It is 12:58, aka 1 o'clock. What's up?
I've been gaming for like an hour.
I know.
No, like 5 hours actually.
You've been deep into it. Why don't you go outside for a little bit?
No.
No.
I'm just getting up so I can have my bones not hurting as much.
We have like 70,000 subscribers and your hair looks like this and you're just going to pop on the screen and not worry about what this looks like?
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right. Do you want to read the next part?
No. But can you guys hear this?
Microphone. Are you cracking and popping? Oh, that's gross. Get it. No, get out of here. No.
What?
It's just funny because we just got talking about treating your body like a temple and all this, and you come up and you start breaking your own bones in front of me. How are you doing that? Show me double joints. Look on the camera. Yeah.
I'm double jointed in my shoulders a bit too. That's why it makes this noise.
Yeah. Get out of here. Get out of here.
I know what I mean. Dad.
Go outside. Look at the grass. Go get a friend. Go.
Gaming. I'm just in a scene. I'm getting back.
And another axiom comes to mind. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at start to change. This is emotional alchemy cut and drive. This is emotional alchemy cut and dry. And so Mr. Hall drops us 5 more steps that are this time concerned more with the psyche. 1, the mastery of emotional outbreaks of all kinds, poise under trying conditions, and kindness in the face of unkindness, and simplicity with its accompanying power. These points show that the seeker is worthy of being taught. 2,
That is sad. This is Priest King's Treacherous Path to Illumination, the Mystery Schools, Antiquity. This is actually a really good bit of information here, and it was very well presented, I think. Yeah, that is sad. I feel sad for Anthony. It's always the children that suffer. Like my newborn son that no one wants to talk about or admit exists. That's pretty fucking sad. Still wearing the bracelet on my fucking wrist. Amazing.
Mastery of the animal energies, the curbing of passion and desire, and the control of the lower nature mark the faithful attempts on the part of the student. 3, the understanding and mastery of the creative forces, the consecration of them to the unfolding of the spiritual nature, and a proper understanding of their physical application. 4, the transmutation of personal affection into impersonal compassion. This shows that the fellow craftsman truly understands his duties and is living in a manner worthy of his order. Personalities cannot bind the true member. For having raised one point of the compass, he now realizes that all personal manifestations are governed by impersonal principles. And again, for that compass metaphor, watch the most recent video. 5. The candidate consecrates the 5 senses to the study of human problems with the unfolding of sense centers as the motive. For he realizes that the 5 senses are keys, the proper application of which will give him material for spiritual transmutation, if he will apply them to the common divisor of analogy. So basically, we embody the mind that connects heaven and earth together in this endless chain, above and below. The spiritual light is brighter if we evolve higher the personal vehicle of the soul, which is mind and body coherence. The alchemical sun and moon are united in this hermetic degree. The psyche can be lifted and liberated from its symbolic cube.
Hey everybody, it's Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. I have a question for you. If you had to make a choice between having
So, what happened when the aspirant was locked away in the darkness to experience fear? Let's take a step back in time and let's once again pay a visit to ancient Egypt. Of all the ancient peoples, the old school Egyptians were the most advanced in the occult sciences. Only the wisest of philosophers would travel across the globe to be initiated into the Great Mystery School. How do you say it? Thales?
But say it again to me. I might not have heard you actually.
Thales. Sometimes I'll just pronounce it wrong because it makes people comment.
Do that.
But
I think if I know.
Thales, Solon, Pythagoras, and Plato all traveled to the delta of the Nile seeking this gnosis. What happened within remains up for debate, but we have a solid source of information by the name of the late Manly P. Hall. Through those passageways lies the path that leads to the eye of judgment and the feet of Amun-Ra. Go, and if thy heart be pure as the garment that you wear, and if thy motive be unselfish, thy feet shall not stumble, and thy being shall be filled with light. But remember that Typhon and his hosts of death lurk in every shadow, and that death is the result of failure. A side note, Typhon is the desire of the few pitted against the good of the many. He is the spirit of dissension and discord that breaks up unity of purpose by setting factions against each other, divide and conquer. The desire for riches, power, and sovereignty by which this evil genius was obsessed reveals the temptation by which humanity is deflected from the ultimate goal and led into the byways of sorrow and despair as the murderers of the master builder. They are ignorance, superstition, and fear, the destroyer of all good things. So moving on with the story here. The shadows of the great unknown closed over him who had dedicated his life to the search of the eternal. The priest watched him until he was lost to sight among the massive pillars beyond the silent span that divided the living from the dead. Through years of purification, he had prepared himself for the great ordeal. With a purified body and balanced mind, he went his way in and out among the pillars that loomed about him. He seemed a ghostly form amid a grove of ancient trees. He passed steadily on his way with but one thought in mind: let there be light. Ghastly music grew louder and louder, terminating at last in a mighty roar. The very walls shook. The dancing forms swayed like flickering candles. Before him loomed another doorway, flanked on either side by an obelisk of carved marble, one black and the other white. There materialized upon the ground at his feet a swirl of lurid mist. In the faint glow that it cast, it twisted like some oily gas. Then out of this cloud issued a gigantic form, half human, half reptile. In its bloodshot eyes burned ruddy pools of demon fire, while white clawed hands reached out to enfold and crush the slender figure that confronted it. Aradamus wavered for a single instant as the horrible apparition lunged forward, its size doubly magnified in the iridescent fog. Then the white-robed neophyte again slowly advanced. He raised his face and courageously faced the hideous specter. As he confronted the menacing form, for an instant it loomed over him like a towering demon. Aradamus raised the cross he carried and held it up before the monster. The crux anasta gleamed with a wondrous golden light, which, striking the oily, scaly monster, seemed to dissolve its every particle into golden sparks. Bearing his cross, Aradamus entered the room and gazed upward at the lofty dome. There, floating in space far above his head, he saw a great closed eye, surrounded by fleecy clouds and rainbow colors. Long Aradamus gazed upon the wondering sight, for he knew it was the eye of Horus, the all-seeing eye of the gods. As he stood, he prayed that the will of the gods might be made known to him, and that in some way he might be found worthy to open that closed eye in the temple of the living God. The eyelid flickered. As the great orb slowly opened, the chamber was filled with dazzling, blinding light that seemed to consume the very stones with fire. Aradamus staggered. It seemed as if every atom of his being was scorched by the effulgence of that glow. He closed his eyes and now feared to open them, for in that terrific blaze of splendor, it seemed that only blindness would follow. But then a strange feeling of peace and calm descended upon him, and he dared to open his eyes to find that the glare was gone. The entire chamber was bathed in a soft, wondrous glow from the almighty eye in the ceiling. As his eyes became accustomed to the glow, he saw that he was no longer alone. He was surrounded by 12 white-robed figures who, bowing before him, held up strange insignia wrought from living gold. All the figures pointed, and as he followed the direction of their hands, he saw a staircase of living light that led far up into the dome and past the eye in the ceiling. With one voice, the 12 said, "Yonder lies the way of liberation."
This was the ultimate survival food of our forefathers. Cooled and sewn into bison hide bags weighing 90 pounds, it was an extremely dense, high-protein and high-energy food. A single
Yonder. With feet that seemed to barely touch the steps, he climbed upward into the dawn of the great unknown. After climbing many steps, he reached a doorway that opened as he neared it. The breath of morning air fanned his cheek, and a golden ray of sun played among the waves of his dark hair. This turned into a romance novel real quick. Surprised, he then stood at the top of the mighty pyramid. Before him, a blazing altar. In the distance, far over the horizon, the rolling sands of the Egyptian desert reflected the first rays of the morning sun. Like a globe of golden fire, rose again out of the eternal east. As Aradamus stood there, a voice that seemed to issue from the very heavens chanted a strange song, and a hand, reaching out as if it were from the globe of day itself, placed a serpent wrought of gold upon the brow of the new initiate. Behold Khepera, the rising sun, for he brings the mighty globe of day out of darkness of night between his claws. So for thee, the Son of Spirit has risen from the darkness of night, and in the name of the living God, we hail thee, priest of Ra. Okay, I want to know what was in that brew. So, ancient hierophants, who it is said that death had forgotten, royal priests who were born from one age to another age without dying. It was said that Melchizedek was his own father and mother, and that Jesus was of the same order. These immortals were parallel to the symbol of the phoenix of the lesser understood Masonic emblem. The axiom, "He has come forth by day," parallels the life of Enoch, once he was liberated from his darkest portions and left the world without tasting the bitterness of death. The legendary and wise Plato suggested that the body is a sepulchre of the soul, and the soul within awaits liberation one way or another. And well, one of two ways. The ignorant are liberated through necessity, but the wise through choice. When you are faced with two paths, choose the path that is hard. Choose the path that is dark. Choose the path with the brambles in your way. Because if you aren't busy clearing obstacles in your path, then you must be following someone else's.
Giving into it, feeding into it, buried into my own head in here, finding rest in it. It's seeing circles and squares, and looking into it like it is. I walk up to the
do this. We have an obligation to cordon them off from the rest of society. They are in jail. They are in jail. They are in jail. They are in jail. Away from my mother, your husband, our families. So I don't want to ask, what made them do this? They must be taken off the street. They must be taken off the street. They must be taken off the street. They must be taken off the street.
Shout out to Bass Records. Hey, yo, Hunter. Roll up another one of them congressional blunts, brother. He was gonna get his laptop fixed, but Hunter got high. He wasn't gonna show all them dick pics, but Hunter got high. He should have let Hillary bleach his whole hard drive. Yeah, Hunter got high. Hunter got high. Hunter got high. He wasn't gonna mess with the hoes, but Hunter got high. He was gonna take them all out on the boat, but Hunter got high. He's the smartest man Joe ever knew in his life. Yeah, till Hunter got high. Hunter got high. Hunter got high. La, da, 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 da. He was gonna go visit his dad, but Hunter got high. He thought he had a secret stash, but Hunter got high. The White House got shut down. We all know why. Yeah, Hunter got high. Hunter got high. Hunter got high. He never could pack worth a fuck. Hunter got high. Now he gets $500,000 and up. Damn, that's high. That's high to the fuck. That's higher than me. Biden never used to start with BUI. Yeah, till Hunter got high. Hunter got high. Hunter got high. Ukraine wasn't part of the plan till Hunter got high. China wasn't that big of a fan till Hunter got high. He wasn't gonna split it all with the old big guy. Yeah, till Hunter got high. Till Hunter got high. Hunter got high. He wasn't gonna go to court, but Hunter got high. He never been indicted before, but Hunter got high. His attorney's out smoking a bowl, and we all know why. Yeah, cause Hunter got high. Hunter got high. Hunter got high. He was making 80 G's a month, but Hunter got high. On a job, brother, ain't never done. Hunter got high. He got more LLCs than John Gotti's ex-wife. Yeah, Hunter got high. Hunter got high. Hunter got high. His cousin was never a pimp till Hunter got high. He had the best friends that money could rent, but Hunter got high. Just imagine if he wasn't rich and so damn white. Yeah, the cops would raid his house, eat his lemon pound cake, disconnect his cameras and steal his money. Shout out to Bass Records. Hey, yo, Hunter. Roll up another one of them congressional blunts, brother.
Positive from negative, crazy, genius. You can't tell the difference. You're fucking mediocre. What do you know? You know nothing at all. You're stuck in a pit. You can't tell the positive from negative, crazy from genius. You can't tell the difference. You're fucking mediocre. What do you know? You know nothing at all. You're stuck in a pit. You can't tell the positive from negative, crazy from genius. You can't tell the difference. You're fucking mediocre. What do you know? You know nothing at all. You're stuck in a pit. You can't tell the positive from negative, crazy from genius. You can't tell the difference. You're fucking mediocre. What do you know? You know nothing at all. You're stuck in a pit.